Welcome back, my friends. Today, I'm spinning the wax with Dan Tregenna of Opia, and we're listening to The Cold White Light by Finnish goth metal legends Sentenced. Don't go anywhere, it all starts right now. Hello, everybody. What is up, my friends? Welcome back to Spinning the Wax, where we listen to your favorite artists' favorite records. I'm your host, John Garcia, aka StayPuft, the metal marshmallow, and your friendly neighborhood headbanger. Today, I am pleased to welcome Dan Tregenna to the show. Dan is the guitarist in gothic doom metal band Opia, who has members across the UK and in Spain, and they just released their incredible debut album earlier this year on Hammerheart Records. And when he told me his pick for the episode today, I nearly about fell over backwards with excitement. Dan is bringing on the 2002 album The Cold White Light from Sentenced, a long-defunct band from Finland that will intrigue fans of Paradise Lost and Catatonia, all the way down to those of you that enjoy Typo Negative, Grave Pleasures, and Unto Others. This is a 10 out of 10 album, in my opinion, that should go down as a classic in metal history. Zero skips on this record, and I hope that you enjoy it. And while the album is important to both of us and our personal journeys, Dan talks about how it really kickstarted his recovery from a depression-related eating disorder, and reading their hopeless, depressing lyrics really made him feel a little less alone in this world. We gush about the masterclass in songwriting across the album, the gorgeous guitar lines, and the imperfect vocal delivery of singer Ville Lahela. I also pick his brain about Opia, their brand new album, I Welcome Thee, Eternal Sleep, what it's like to have a member all the way out in Spain, and how the band formed while they were watching a set featuring a band full of former Sentence members. I hope you enjoy this album, my friends. I hope you enjoy Opia, and I hope you love hearing about the creation of their incredible Victorian-shrouded gothic doom metal album. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Maybe leave a comment below telling us how much you love Sentenced or how you discovered Opia. And also consider heading over to patreon.com/spinningthewax, where you can support the show directly while receiving early access to these episodes, new music updates every single week, and exclusive content, including uncut full album listen portions of this show. Now, on to the show. This is episode 22 of Spinning the Wax, where Dan Tregenna of Opia listens to The Cold White Light by Sentenced. Please welcome Daniel Tregenna to the show, guitarist for Opia. My friend, it's so good to meet you. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you. It's nice to be here. Yeah, doing well. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Ready to dive into both talking about your band and talking about the band that we're here to listen to today for a lot of various different reasons. But before we get into Sentenced, I want to ask you a little bit about your band, because as we mentioned, your debut album is out. I know that you are a man of many talents and many hats, coming from, touring and artist management. You have a doctorate degree, and then you have like all different hats in the entertainment business, as well as now this band that has kind of pulled you out from the shadows to get back in front of it. So I'm curious about how Opia started and like why. And I guess I'll start the second question next, because that'll probably get into our pick today. But yeah, just tell me a little bit about how Opia started, how you met the members of the band, and how this gothic doom metal started to take shape, my friend.
I work as a concert promoter in London and various parts of the UK to some degree. And I did a show for a band called Kursk, who are a Finnish supergroup. And they feature two members of Sentenced, Sami Kukahovi and Sami Lopaka. And my other half, Tereza, who is the vocalist in Opia. We were basically working together on it. And I'd left a black metal band in 2017, and I said I'd never really want to get back on stage again after having done that. It just wasn't enjoyable unless it was something where the music was just too good to not do it. Too much like my taste, which is very much this sort of European gothic metal style. We were watching the set, and I think about 3 songs in, Tereza turns to me and says, "We should do this." And I was like, "Yeah, all right." So she immediately messaged some friends that she knew who she had played with in former bands.
Mm.
She used to play in a black metal band called Agrona. Reached out to Phoenix and Rich and Jimmy from there. I think Phoenix was actually in Spain at the time, completely just smashed off his face on wine. And,
As you do in Spain, right? I think that's like par for the course.
yeah, and his reply was, "I'm drunk right now, but yes." And I knew a keyboard player I played with back in that black metal band in 2016 who was absolutely incredible musician.
Mm.
And we really wanted that element to the sound of the keyboards. So I reached out, and he said, "Unfortunately, I moved back to Spain after family, death in the family, but maybe we could do it internationally." And so that's more or less where the band was formed. I think by the time Kursk played the last song, the lineup had confirmed.
That's crazy. So it's like one set, it had gone from not even an idea to just like, okay, now we're a band.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome, dude. So then I guess let's just go ahead and get into like, because I guess now like Sentence is so intertwined with this band. Both I know for your story as well, like personally how big of a band that they were for you, and for similar but different reasons for me as well. So yeah, I guess let's just, I'll still ask you questions about the band, but let's get into our pick today, which is Sentence, The Cold White Light. And I about did a backflip when you said this, because if I had to rank 10 of my favorite albums, I don't know where this would be, but it would be on there somewhere, and probably like right in the middle or high up, because it is just such a remarkable album that I don't think many people nowadays like know of or heard of or anything like that. But it's just a literal like start to finish 10 out of 10 banger. And yeah, I'm gushing about it, but yeah, why do you love Sentence, The Cold White Light? I know, and again, I know this is very, very personal for you.
Yeah, so when I was 15, 16, I had an eating disorder. I was a few pounds below the weight where they hospitalize you here in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't really about body image, it was linked to depression.
Mm.
And a lot of the people around me were kind of, "You should eat, you should feel better, this will be fine." And it's a kind of, there's a loneliness in that where people aren't really understanding what you're going through or what you're feeling. And I think those statements kind of push you the wrong way. It makes it feel a lot more isolated. And one day I found this clip of these 5 guys who were all black against a white background. I don't know, there was about 6 seconds of the song attached. I searched everywhere for it. And eventually I tracked it down to be a song by the band Sentenced. And I listened through all of the albums, especially the stuff when Villa Lalia comes in as the vocalist. And there was a certain element to that where the lyrics written by Samuel Opaka were so visceral and real and honest. And I kind of realized that I wasn't entirely alone. There were these 5 guys in northern Finland who were writing the things I was thinking and feeling. And that was very much a cornerstone I built my recovery from.
I love that, dude. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that and hear those people say, like, why don't you just get better? It's like, well, if I fucking could, I would, right? And I understand that because, I suffer from depression as well. A lot of it is driven through anxiety, which I take medicine for. And, appetite is one of the first things that goes out the window, But I'm really glad that you got over that and that you had help and found this, because A, that's the power of music, I think, and B, like, look at where you are right now just from finding a little clip of music to lead you on your way. Yeah.
It's yeah, Sentenced has been a big part of life since. I mean, Even got the tattoo.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, this album has been in constant rotation in my listening diet. I'm basically since 2003 or 2004. I mean, I put this album and this band along with the likes of like the such cornerstone bands for me as like, Metallica, Killswitch Engage. Maybe not Metallica and Maiden and stuff like that because those were the first ones, but certainly like, At the Gates, Shadows Fall, like the next steps that you go to for that. And yeah, have spent more time with their latter half career albums than I have the first ones. I don't know about you, but yeah, the run of I mean, I was late to coming into Frozen, but the run of Crimson Cold White Light and the Funeral album is just a ridiculous run of albums that this band did.
Yeah, I mean, the early stuff is has its charm. I still meet people who go, "Oh, I really like the first one."
Sure, I'm
Second,
not really a big fan of the first one personally.
it's okay for what it is.
Yeah.
It's a death metal album released in the year 1990. It's brilliant for that basis, but we
Mhm.
are 30 years or so from that point.
Yeah. I also think that North from Here does what that album does, but just better in a lot of ways. So I'm always going to go, if I'm going to listen to the early ones, I'm probably going to go, North of Here or Muck rather than Shadows of the Past.
Yeah, I'm much the same on that. But I do think it's a band where you had a death metal debut. The second album, in my opinion, sounds more like black metal than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then Amok is just straight melodeath. It's only when Villaire comes in as a vocalist that they really seem to find their stride as a band.
Yeah. So in creating Opia's music, how do you think that you tried to, I guess, filter that love of Sentenced and obviously the mellow death and the mellow doom and the goth and everything like that into, how you want to formulate your songs and whatnot?
Well, one thing that does kind of help here is that our other guitarist, Phoenix, is a fellow traveler when it comes to Sentenced.
Mm.
In fact, one of the reasons we chose it for today is that every member of the band has some history with Sentenced growing up and
Oh
their
wow,
music.
cool.
So it's the band that means the most to me, but it connects all of us. They're kind of there's a shared love amongst all the members.
Yeah.
Um, from my perspective, I write a lot of the lyrics for Opia,
Okay.
and the honesty that Samuel Paca's lyrics had is something I kind of consider that something like my North Star, if you like.
Mm.
It's if it's not honest, I don't want to write it. I'm sure I could write a song about losing a child or something, but I've never experienced that. I wouldn't want to touch it. But things that we write about are the things we know about, and in that respect, I think there's definitely an influence. But musically, you can hear that our guitar work is very influenced by Mika and Sammy's particular styles. It filters through, but there is enough in there that we're not just retreading old ground. But we're certainly happy to nod to that influence.
Of course, and it's one of those things too that as I listened to this band for the first time and like went through the album for the first time, plenty of different bands are going to come up as far as like just sounds, right? Because of lived experiences and everything like that, right? That's what music is. But I don't know if despite knowing the band and everything like that, if Sentence popped up immediately, which I think nods to your point of saying that, it's not, we're not just trying to be a Sentence clone or something like that, because obviously like when I saw the pick and heard this, like, okay, yes, this makes, so much sense with the gloom and the melody and the emotion that they put into their music. And real quick before we get into the record, I think it's worth saying that you talked about like the lyrics that they have in this one. I mean, with songs like Luxury of the Grave and Excuse Me While I Kill Myself or, Guilt and Regret, there are so many downtrodden, dreary songs in this that are almost like, especially in this day and age, like, excuse me, why I might kill myself. Like, I don't know if that feels like, ooh, should we even, be playing this? But like we should, because there's also a tongue in cheek to this album where it's way more hopeful than say like a Frozen or a Crimson, where they kind of, you see that white light a little bit more than just the fucking gray clouds of Finland from their previous albums.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think that one of the more unflattering things said about Sentenced is the similarity to Type O. But I think that humor is something both bands have in common. But I also think this album does highlight where those two bands differ in terms of their overall approach to some of these sorts of subjects.
I mean, I like Typo, and I wouldn't say, oh, they're a jokey band or whatever, but they very much have a more, I shall we say, for lack of a better term, like juvenile sense of humor and like mischievous sense of humor, whereas Cold White Light and like Sentence is more just like, fucking like, yeah, bury me, my bare ass naked, or not, don't even bury me, just throw my bare ass in the woods, and that's it, because I don't even fucking deserve a grave, I'm such a piece of shit,
It's very much gallows humor, which I think appeals to some of our sensibilities because the UK has a bit of a love for that kind of humor, I think.
Very much so. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it and do that. So shall we, my friend? This is Sentenced 2002 album, The Cold White Light. In 3, 2, 1, play. Yeah, I have so much to say about this record just because of, like I said, how important it is to me and just how quick the songs go. I mean, you're 6 songs into this and you're like, I haven't even taken a break to like breathe or chew my food because the songs are just so good and so melodious.
One thing I really like about it is Sentenced write songs, whereas I think some bands write albums. So it's not really... Every song is unique in its own way. They all stand out. I think you can listen to any given one and they make sense on their own.
Yeah. One of the reasons that this band comes up in my conversations with a lot of artists and stuff like that is because I'm very much into bands within the past like 10 or so years, maybe longer than that now, like, your Grave Pleasures and your Unto Others and everything like that are working the goth 80s realm into their music, and then some of the more My Dying Bride and Paradise Lost aspects into their music and stuff like that. And like this band, I always joke that this band, Sentence, is what primed me to be such a big Unto Others fan, because like you look at their pictures for 20 years apart, they look about the same. Like you said, those songs are just so tight and so good. Like even just like the drums with the boom, the extra echo on that low tom just makes you feel something, Oh,
absolutely. It's unsurprisingly, we're all quite big Unto Others fans as well.
Yeah.
I know they don't describe themselves as gothic metal, but
they're 80s heavy metal mixed with like, 80s goth rock. So I mean, like, sure, they're not gothic metal, but they certainly have that edge to them. Like a speed metal band like Bewitcher. I love Bewitcher, and they have goth elements in their band as well. Yeah, I interviewed Scott Taysom from Cloak, another black metal band, who, we listen to In Solitude, which is just talk about like another band that primed people for Unto Others and stuff like that. And in fact, I think Sentenced and In Solitude ran in a lot of the same circles when they were coming up.
I think a lot of the gothic doom scene, for lack of a better phrase, you kind of have to go out of your way to find someone who hasn't met most of the other big names in that band. A good friend of ours is a man named Hamish Glencross, who was in My Dying Bride for a long time.
Yeah.
And he mentioned how he remembered touring with Sentenced at one point. And obviously he knows all the Paradise Lost guys and all that. And I think when you get to a certain level, when you're touring internationally, the circles can become a lot smaller as much as they become bigger.
Yeah, these guitar lines right here, I guess it's a guitar solo, but like it doesn't even feel like a guitar solo, because just the melody just carries you. It's
the more I listen to it now, the more I realize that Sebastian Silver in Unto Others has quite a similar guitar style too. In terms of the phrasing.
Very much so, yeah. Because that reminded me a little bit of like, Can You Hear the Rain? Like that guitar solo at the end of that. So we were speaking about the hopeful tone of this record, and this is where it like really starts. Where it's talking about, someone's dead. There's always going to be someone that's dead. So just enjoy your life. Because brief is the light, my friend. And I just like, I don't know how much of a singer you are. I've karaoke'd to this many, many times, and I may do it again just because it's just bells again, someone has died. I just can't get it out of my head, Dan.
It's I think the guitar solo in this is one of those moments where I listen to this band and I'm just in awe of the songwriter that Mika Tenkula was. Obviously, he died in 2009, but he's credited as the sole songwriter for 98% of the music or something like that.
And that's crazy. I remember when he died, I was in college, and there was that was only a few years after the Funeral album came out. But even at that point, you're like, oh, well, maybe in like 10 years or something like that, something can come around. And that's another reason why I want to, I'm glad that you picked this and we could try our best to just scream into the void about this, because there's no new sentence coming. People that know about this band already know about it, and it's not in the general populace anymore. So anything we can kind of do to throw it back into that current. I scream at the rooftops about this album.
Same. The UK metal scene is a little bit behind the curve when it comes to this kind of music. So they're fellow travelers anywhere you go, but definitely a minority.
Yeah. What's interesting too is I was doing a brief run through of some of the older albums. We were talking about like Amok or Amok, however you say it in Swedish or whatever. Very much you could hear the influence that a band like Children of Bodom would have gotten from this band, and they would have been very much aware of this band, and I know it was an influence for them, and, with how big of an influence Children of Bodom became for a long time, and I guess to this day still really is. It is, there you go back again to your favorite musician's favorite music, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the members of Insomnium have been very vocal that this was the band that got them into heavy music.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would have to really go out your way to find a Finnish metal guitarist from sort of the year 2000 onwards who wasn't directly influenced by the guitar work on these albums in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Him are another example.
Exactly. Yeah. Who obviously, they blew up all over the place, over everywhere really, but I remember him growing up as a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Jackass teen or whatever, right? The acoustic guitar that they layer behind the distorted chords in there in this chorus is so good.
Yeah, it's I can't think of too many albums where I've heard that trick done. Maybe some of the old In Flames albums, I think there's a little bit of that on the Just Erase, but
nowadays it's definitely a producer trick, because they're that band Cloak that I was talking about, they do that on there specifically because of like bands like this and in Solitude, because they were doing that as well. Nevermore did that a lot with some of the layering that they did. You were talking about the guitar solo in Brief as a Light. I have that same feeling for this one, where they just like fucking 3.5 minute banger that they just rip into it. I have fucking this bass right here. Like,
this awesome.
After the first two, which are bangers, it's somehow even stronger than that. I don't know.
I've spoken a little bit to Sammy in the time since working with him, Lapaka rather than Kukovi. And he mentioned that when they recorded Crimson, the album before this, none of them were in a particularly great place in their lives.
That makes sense, actually.
There's that dreary hopelessness and despair in that album, which for me was why that album was the one I first connected with. Because like I say, that was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
But this album, I think, is, as much as it's the musical successor to Crimson, it's also the kind of a slight emotional, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Antithesis?
This is kind of recovery, if you like, in a sense.
I see what you mean. While they had been kind of changing for several albums, ever since like Veli got into the band, if I remember correctly, this is just like a little bit before I was paying attention, but if I remember correctly, Crimson was the album that they really started to get on, because I know Killing Me, Killing You is just, their big hit. So I could definitely see that, especially with, how metalheads are. Oh, I hate this band. They fucking sold out and went soft, and they're not death metal anymore, which I'm sure that they fucking went through.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still meet people with that opinion. A lot of these sorts of bands, like Amorphis or another, with the same sort of bipolar fan base, if you like. I've definitely met people who only want to listen to like the first demo that they released on cassette with like one guitar and drums played on kitchenware.
This is if I ever need to get some steam out, just like blow out some emotion, I'll put this on in my car and turn it up really loud and sing along to this I don't know. I don't know if you would call this a ballad or whatever, but just we'll get to it. But you know the part where he's like, "Hey," and then everything goes into the last little bit. Oh my God.
It's uh, it's one of the few songs on this album that was the lyrics were written by Ville himself,
Mm-hmm.
and for some reason that makes it feel kind of special. I think because this is a rare window outside of Sammy's voice for a brief period.
Yeah. To kind of get back into Opia, which I know I will eventually interrupt you when it's time for the hey. This type of music, and the music that you employ in Opia, that gothic doom, obviously I know that there is a sort of like Victorian-era bent into the lyrics, right? And that feeling that gets through, and you can see that kind of in the in the photo shoots a little bit as well. Why do you think that speaks to you specifically and the rest of the band? Because I know that you said that you write a lot of the lyrics for that, but yeah, why does that era speak to you and this music?
I think there's various elements to it which I think give us a little bit of distance from the modern era.
Okay.
Um, for some of the lyrics, we do dig quite deep into our own personal experience and lives. And
Mm-hmm.
for example, the first single we did on Death's Door, the song was written by our other guitarist. It's the only set of lyrics he wrote for the album. And they were written about the death of his aunt from cancer.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
it was an easier lens to put it into an 18th century thing. Speaking more generally, I think also the 18th century might be one of the most bleak and just miserable, dour experiences in history. Um,
Yeah, especially in your neck of the woods, my friend.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, we had the Industrial Revolution, no workers' rights, no women's suffrage, a lot of people working 18 hours a day and sleeping sat up in flop houses. There's a lot of misery in 18th century Britain.
Mm-hmm.
It's good ground for lyrics, I think.
Yeah, and does the fact that there's also, always a kind of a supernatural connotation to that Victorian era, does that play into the music as well?
Yeah, we have a couple of songs which are based around occultism and spiritualism.
Like the eye and the fade
Yeah,
sounds like that to me. Would that be correct?
no,
Okay.
not the fade.
All right.
On Death's Door Part Two
Mm,
does have so there's a reference in there to the a mirror unshrouded, which there was a myth in the Victorian era that if a uncovered mirror was in a room when someone died, their soul could become trapped.
yes, yes,
So
very much.
that's key to the story within On Death's Door Part Two.
Mm,
But ultimately, that song is about grief. The Fade is a bit different. So I wrote the lyrics to the Fade on a train down to visit my grandparents. My grandfather had just died a few days before,
mm.
and he had dementia for 4 years. And back in his day, he could physically build a TV from spare parts.
Wow.
By the end, he couldn't figure out how to use the mute button on the TV remote.
Mm,
Um, and so I wrote those songs because I felt very little when he'd actually died. And I needed to process that somehow. And so I just kind of wrote what I experienced and what I felt. And I kind of came to terms with the fact that I'd spent 4 years grieving whilst he was alive. And so that's what the Fade is. It's not linked to any particular time frame or anything occult.
hmm.
It's a song written about seeing a loved one fade away and who they were and what they felt, their experiences,
Okay.
their memories just go. We
Yeah.
dedicate that song to people who've been in that experience every night.
Wow, I love that. And I was, listening to it earlier today, and it's one of those songs that has kind of unfurled itself the more you listen to it. Which this music does that in general, and certainly this album does that. It's a beautiful song, my friend. So I think that the memory of who your grandfather was and the emotional feeling of anybody going through that very much sticks itself in that. So hang on. So do you know the lyrics behind it says the serial self killer M. Sealgrave for the lyrics? Do you know
Yeah,
the
yeah.
story behind this? I don't know this.
So when they were first starting out, the band came up with a couple of silly nicknames just as like a tongue-in-cheek joke for the album credits.
Okay.
So M Steelgrave is Mika Tenkula, hence the M,
I gotcha.
and the serial self-killer is Sammy. So it might as well just say Sammy Lepaka and Mika
Yeah.
Tenkula like the others. But
I just like, I don't think I've ever noted as much as like, I have the fucking booklet in my like CD wallet downstairs. I don't think I've ever noticed that. Then here it turns into like a Sisters of Mercy, almost like goth banger right here with the bass, everything, and the keyboards.
Sammy Kukahovi doesn't get nearly enough credit for his bass playing.
It's so good. Like we shouted it out twice already. Such like a visceral song, but also like, I don't think people would listen to the song and be like, yeah, blow your brains against the wall sounds like a great fucking thing to do or whatever, you know. It's just that's where that kind of tongue-in-cheek humor I feel like comes on. And this one, and Luxury of a Grave specifically, it's a great song. That's all I got to say.
It's another example of a song where just how easy Mika Tenkula makes pinch harmonics is kind of hurtful to some degree. It's I've never heard anyone who could just do 6 pinch harmonics in a row in the way he does it.
This is a pub sing-along song, Dan.
Yeah.
I just need like a fucking tankard of Guinness and like my arm around someone who I don't know and just like blood and tears.
It's brilliant. It's again another example of the band's sort of stumbling into a career in music, because you can see that they accidentally renamed this song and the next one with each other's names. So on the CDs, this one comes up as "You Are the One," and "You Are the One" comes up as "Blood and Tears."
I did hear that they'd like to imbibe in the occasional Finnish alcoholic drink a time or two, as most Finns like to do. So
yeah. It's social lubricant in Finland, I'm afraid.
Yeah, exactly. It also, keeps you warm during the cold fucking nights. I always try and think about, you're talking about the difference between Crimson and this one, and there's just something about the way that they shorn all of the songs down to just their most basic and simple, like, songwriting form. Like, barely any song over here is 4.5 minutes long, except for the last song, which is mostly because of the way that it, fades out and everything like that. This whole band in general, the way that they just provide a masterclass of songwriting on most of their albums, but this one in particular, and people who are listening to this without hearing it in the background or anything like that, just like really give yourselves 45 minutes to just hit play on this motherfucking thing.
I mean, I find it funny their lack of a fan base in the UK sometimes, just because I know so many people here who adore Typo and are heartbroken that Peter Steele left without another album, who I think if they heard this, they would, it's not the same band and it wouldn't fill the same hole, but it's in the same league.
Well, and very much because Vili's voice is that like low, I don't know if he would be considered a baritone or not. I'm not that musically inclined in vocals, but it just definitely is not the typical type of voice that you hear, and then does give you that sort of like Dracula image with his voice, One
of the things I think that attracts me towards this type of music is the clean vocals do not need to be perfect. In fact, sometimes it's a lot better if they don't, or if they aren't. The same is true for Paradise Lost, for My Dying Bride. I don't want to hear a My Dying Bride album where Aaron Stainthorpe sounds great. I want to hear that sort of kind of half wailing, sort of slightly almost off kind of clean, almost spoken delivery.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is, you don't want to make lyrics that aren't true, and you love the honesty in the lyrics that they have in this one. I mean, that's basically what it is here, with just like, you love that genuine, raw, emotional voice that you cannot hide the voice cracks or whatever it is on it. And those imperfections make it sound more human and make it easier to like connect with, I think. And people may have heard Courtney LaPlante a little while back talking about how polished metalcore is nowadays, and people don't want to hear the pristine, perfect, quantized everything or whatever it is. And yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about that humans and flaws and maybe not like huge mistakes, but little mistakes here and there just make an album feel more human.
Yeah, I mean, when we got the Opia album back, the Final Masters, there were a couple moments where the engineer said stuff like, "Oh, you can hear a cable being unplugged at the end of this song," or "There's this one note here which doesn't quite land perfect," and we're like, "Nope, leave those in. Don't touch them. We want those elements." Because bands like this that inspire us, they don't sweat the perfect. The imperfect makes it perfect in its own sense.
Yeah.
And I see that as important for our sound as much as our influences.
I very much agree on that. And that's not to say that, like, hey, if you're a technical death metal band, you shouldn't have everything like note perfect or whatever, right? Obviously, that depends on the genre. But to kind of this point, it's, a different artist, but you've heard of Emma Ruth Rundle?
No, that's a new one to me.
Okay, because so she is basically like a gothic folk artist from the States, originally from Louisville, Kentucky, I believe. Spent a lot of time in like LA and California and around there. But she's done guitar and vocals in a lot of different like either indie rock bands or kind of like doomy sort of bands. She did a collaboration with the doom band Thou a while back that was like really, really, really fucking good. But she did an album recently, a couple years ago, that was basically just her and a piano or her and a guitar, and like that was it. Literally, just like one microphone recorded this thing. But you can hear in that because she's singing about such intense things about taking her mom to the methadone clinic and her grandma dying and all of this other stuff, where you can actually hear her play wrong notes or like flub notes on the piano and stuff like that. But it's all like free time and it all works with the vibe that she's going for. And when I saw her play live, those little mistakes were still kind of in there, and they had become part of the song, where I thought like what was maybe a sour note or a two keys hit on the piano or whatever just became part of the song. And I love that type of shit.
I think there's a couple of Nine Inch Nails releases I've heard where they have a similar kind of approach. I think Still is one where there's an acoustic version of Something I Can Never Have, which is just Trent Reznor with the piano. And you can hear every wrong note, every note he doesn't sing quite right, brushing the accidental keys on the key of the piano.
Yes.
And it's infinitely better than the original version of the song.
Sometimes imperfection is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I say, it is genre. I don't want to hear imperfect notes on, say, a tech death release.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm listening to Opeth, I want to hear crystal clear. But then I don't know if Michael Ackerfeld's actually even capable of playing a wrong note.
I was about to say, if there were wrong notes on there, it was because he wanted you to hear the wrong notes. So how have, obviously we're in the time of computers and digital files and all of that other stuff, but how have y'all balanced, being this international band away from each other and writing and like sharing stuff back and forth? How have you found over the years that this band has become a thing that kind of is developed your sound, and how you've navigated that?
It hasn't really negatively impacted us. If anything, it's been kind of a positive, because we kind of bypassed a lot of the shows that just weren't really going in the direction we needed the band to be going in, just because I don't know, maybe you get offered to play with some local bands as the openers, and it's quite easy to turn around and say, well, we're happy to do that, but we'll need to fly Jorge in. Here's how much his flights would cost. The rest of us will do it for free, but you need to pay this much for this.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit more able to be selective about the choices we have. In terms of the music, Google Drive has become kind of a religion at this point.
Yeah, I believe it.
It requires a bit of discipline, because we all work. I mean, I'm at my desk here where I learn the songs, write the lyrics. When I come to the practice room, I'm ready to mesh what I know the song to be with what the others have. That requires some degree of discipline to be able to say, well, I'm going to make sure I'm well rehearsed, well practiced in my own time. So yeah, there are some compromises, but I find there's a certain degree of discipline, and you can rehearse at least a few times. It's not really a problem. a lot less than a lot of people suggest it could be. We get asked about this a lot from bands who do like weekly rehearsals. We maybe do one rehearsal before we go out on tours, but that's about it. And then we try to do something once a month with the members who live in the UK. But that's as much a social gathering as anything else. Everybody's very well brushed up on their parts long before we even get in there.
And so is it, does everybody in the band write musical parts and send them back and forth and everything like that?
So generally, Phoenix writes, he's kind of our Mika Tinkular, if you like. Okay. In the sense he also plays a lot of the guitar solos and
which, speaking of this like the acoustic guitar solo or whatever it is right here, I was trying not to interrupt, but it's so good.
It is. Yeah, so Phoenix tends to write the first draft of the song, and he uploads it, and it will have a very basic bass line and very basic drums and a broad idea for what the keyboards could be with a terrible Casio effect to it.
Hell yeah.
He's going to watch this and be like, I don't think it's that bad. Sorry, Phoenix. But
I don't think it's that bad, Phoenix.
But, he uploads it and there's no lyrics. So then we'll find lyrics or we'll write lyrics. And then Tereza will get her vocals around it. And when we know what she wants to do, we generally redraft the lyrics together. Because I have a concept for how I think the lyrics will go, and Phoenix has a concept for how he thinks the lyrics will go. Tereza will hear it and go, no, I think it's this. And then we'll hear it and it's like, oh yeah, no, that's better. And then there's this small little redrafts we do with that as well, where because she comes from the Czech Republic originally, so certain syllables in English are more difficult than others. So I write it how I think I would sing it, but I don't have the barrier of the TH sound, for example. But yeah, so we get those initial versions and then everyone takes it away and they kind of think maybe the bass line is just root notes following the riff. And it's like, this is boring. I could do something more like this. And so that mutates when we bring it to the next practice. But Sam will work on the drums. That will inevitably change because he has a better ear for drumming. Phoenix is a guitarist and he knows he's a guitarist. Yeah. He writes drums like a guitarist. So we generally actually write them pretty simple. So they tend to be just simple 4/4. Well, it depends on the time signature, but the drums are very stripped back on the first version. Sam tends to come in with that and go, well, this last third of the song needs some blast beats.
We always need blast beats.
So yeah, the first draft always comes from Phoenix, but everyone adjusts to their own playing style, changes up certain sections, and then when that's done, when it comes time for recording, we track them in our own houses as DIs, and then they're reamped later. That's how it's worked remotely, especially from the Canaries. It's easier for Jorge to record and perform the keys at home in Gran Canaria, and then upload it to the drive and send it to the producer. So
yeah, and that kind of gets to the point of saying, we're in a post-pandemic world where you don't need people to be in the same space anymore just to create music. Like obviously, like you're saying, when you're trying to do touring or shows or recording or whatever, it may be a little bit different or difficult. But obviously with this album out, y'all were able to get over that and do your thing. And like I, would have thought from listening to it that it's like, no, this is just like a studio album that was recorded in a studio and everything like that. So props to the people who mixed and mastered it and y'all for recording it so well.
Yeah, that would be our dear friend Mr. Abraham Fihema, who I will probably tag because I've mentioned him here. He mixed and mastered everything. The only other studio stuff was Tereza's vocals. She did those with a friend of ours called Timmy Vincent, who's working with Sleep Token at the moment. I think he did some overdubs for some of their guitar work on the last album, something along those lines. But so we did the vocals in a proper studio, just because we did try to record those at home. I mean, we have equipment here because I used to be a sound engineer, but the results weren't quite working. And I think we needed someone with a fresh pair of ears and someone who's neutral to either of us. And Timmy just absolutely smashed that. So
yeah, very
the only
much so.
exception with the recording is all the vocals are done in a proper studio.
That's great. And so that actually gets into, I know Tereza has always been a singer, and I believe, was she classically trained? Was that correct?
Yes, she was. Yeah.
Okay. And then has been in black metal bands and has done harsh vocals, and now kind of going back into a mix of the two. How have you seen her voice and her vocals and, like, I guess her instrument, I suppose, grow and develop with this, like, new venture that you guys have been doing?
She's always been brilliant at both types of vocals.
Yeah.
For my money, I can't think of a UK vocalist who you could honestly say was a better harsh vocalist than Tereza is. I can think of some who are on the same level, but not better. And I said that before the band, so I can say that objectively.
Yeah.
With the cleans, I think it's definitely been a process of getting comfortable more than developing talent. Talent was always there, in my opinion, but getting used to it, getting in condition, all these things. I think that's definitely been a thing. But yeah, I mean, she has expanded her range since she started. She's a lot more comfortable. Her breathing is a lot better. And some of that is experience, of course, and practice. And another little bit of it is there's a band who are UK based now, but used to be in Belgium, called Pantheist. And their vocalist, Linda Demetru, is her vocal coach.
Oh, okay.
So that's definitely helped, I think, to develop some of the clean techniques that, have you considered trying this in this section of this song?
Yeah, having even when you have been trained to know a whole lot of stuff, when coming back to someone who is in that field and can give you tips and stuff like that, you've never learned too much to not learn anything more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's reminds me of Randy Rhoads, Ozzy's first guitarist, who used to famously hire a new guitar teacher every tour stop they did, just in case someone could teach him some new trick.
Exactly. Yeah, because it was his first guitar teacher is like, I literally have nothing else to teach you. Like, in fact, you are now teaching me. Dude, we chatted through Luxury of a Grave, which is fine because, I mean, we talked about it a lot through, like, the onset of the show. But this song right here, it always annoys the fuck out of me how it ends when it makes your, like, head explode and everything like that. But starting out with the lyrics, the axe, the bottle, and the rope, the feeling there really is no more hope, the thought of the great unknown and facing it alone. It's just like, those are those lyrics that you're talking about, Dan, where they're just, like, so honest and so talking about things that are so taboo in both of our cultures and both of our societies. And it's like, no, we can talk about death and dying without being like, we're gonna fucking kill ourselves or whatever, because it's the one thing that connects all of us together.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things I always loved about Sentence. They're not politically correct in the sense of not being politically correct, in the right sense of not being politically correct.
In the way that it's like the people who are being like, well, why the fuck don't you just get over your depression, or why don't you just eat more or whatever, and then like, oh, well, we can't talk about mental illness or we can't talk about depression. They're like, not only are we going to fucking talk about it, we're going to make you uncomfortable with it, because it should make you uncomfortable because we have to deal with this stuff all the time.
Yeah, I think Sentenced have approached sensitive subject matter in a way that I think is honest. And I think there are bands who are afraid to go quite as far with this subject matter as Sentenced do. And I think the fact that Sentence does that is part of why their career didn't quite get to Typo levels, for example, or Paradise Lost levels. But in my opinion, it's also what separates them from those bands, because they weren't afraid to go there.
And this bridge right here, just like the triumphant end through like the last little bits, and then back into these the keyboards on this song are out of this world. Just the way that they so lightly, gently fill in the background so that they're not overpowering, but if they weren't there, the song wouldn't be the same. This is going to be stuck in my head for a little bit. I'm probably going to go on a Sentence kick after this for a little bit. I haven't, like I said, I listened to this album a little bit ago just because it like came up and I was like, oh yeah, it's really good. But I don't think I've listened to the Funeral album or Crimson all the way through in a very long time.
I mean, if you want to do another episode of the show, I'm always happy to listen.
Hey, all right, yeah. We're gonna have every episode, or every member of Opia is gonna come on with a different sentenced album, and Dan will be there all the time because he cannot be. There's probably little chance that you've heard of this band, but I'll throw it out just in case. Have you heard of like a indie folk band from Indiana in the United States called Murder by Death?
The name is ringing some kind of bell, but
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's totally fine. Basically, I mean, they're just like a folk band. Yeah, their singer is very much like a baritone, low voice, folky country singer type of dude, and his wife plays cello in the band. And but they're not, they're not like country. They've got like a punky edge to them because they started as I think like a punk and a folk band or whatever, and we gotta wait for this bird to fucking explode our ears right here. Anyway, they have a couple of albums that they did through like Kickstarter and Patreon where they fielded a bunch of people's requests for covers. So you've got this folk band doing covers of like Motorhead, and they did a Wasted Years cover and everything like that. Oh my god, Dan, it's hurting my ears so bad. All right, and we're done. End of the road. Long-winded way of saying that they did a cover of Despair Ridden Hearts, and it's this folky Americanized cover of the song, which I mean it basically sounds the same because it's just a simple song anyway, but it's really good. So if people want to go check out a really cool band that sounds nothing like this, do that. Murder by Death, everybody. But Dan, we did it. That was The Cold White Light by Sentenced, and it was just as good as I remember it being. Do you have any last words on this album, my friend?
I just hope that some people take this album, go away, listen to it, enjoy it, and for some people, I think it will be potentially a life-changing album.
I think so too. And granted, I'm biased to say that because I found this in that life-changing time of 14, 15, 16. But this is, like I said, and I've been gushing about through the entire episode. People are going to be like, shut the fuck up about Sentenced already. But yeah, definitely give this one a go, because I just think even if you like music and melody and bouncy, bassy goth rock and shit like that, you'll find a lot to listen to. If you're a Grave Pleasures fan, go listen to Sentence. It's a little bit like dingier and dirtier than Grave Pleasures, but still good. So Dan, before we go, I wanted to wrap things up real quick. First, I know that Opia got your tour legs under you at the end of last year and everything like that, which I'm sure helped kind of round out playing live and getting, the whole feeling of the band, and, the album just being like, oh, this is a real thing that's gonna fucking happen. So this will be out after the album is out. Is there any plans for touring coming up in the future, or anything that anybody should be looking out for after the album comes out?
So what I can reveal is this summer we will be playing a tour in Europe.
Okay, cool.
Mainland. And then in the winter, I think we're probably looking at more UK dates. But I haven't started the planning for that. I tend to handle a lot of the actual tour booking for the band. So
the man with many hats who's done all their sound engineering and the tour bookings, the artist management, handles the bookings. I'm shocked, I say.
It's kind of, it's worked out well in terms of the touring. I think we did our third tour last month, and that just, again, this is one of those challenges from having a keyboard player who lives in another country. It doesn't make sense to fly him in for a single day unless it's something we absolutely couldn't not do. So,
yeah, like Opia's opening for Black Sabbath or some shit like that,
yeah, or Swallow the Sun or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Or Bloodstock Festival of Aachen or something along those lines. That makes sense to do it as a one-off, but overall we book tours. We don't do one-offs, so we tend to do one UK tour a year, because it's easier to sort the logistics to have Jorge in for a week than it is to have him in for just a day and then back. Yeah, we will be doing at least 2 more tours within the next 12 months.
Cool.
But yeah, that's as much as I can reveal at the moment. But
yeah, no, that's totally fine. Yeah, I know. It's always like, hey, tell me what you're doing, but also don't tell me what you're doing and get in trouble. But yeah, okay, so everybody, if you're in the UK or in mainland Europe, be on the lookout for Opia dates in the coming future. And then, so We've talked about it a fair amount, Dan, but Welcome the Eternal Sleep, I think, is just such a great entrance for the band into not only just like, the doom and gothic metal scene, but just, extreme metal in general. And I think you all should be very, very proud of the album that you're putting forth with it. So whether someone is listening to this and has heard the album, or they're going to listen to it for the first time after this, or have listened to it many times, what, as you think about this and this album releases out into the world and everything like that, what do you want people to take away from listening to this record?
I think when we did our third show, there was a girl who came up to me in the train station, and she said that she had had a hard time because she'd lost her dad 6 months before, and that the songs had resonated with her as a result. The biggest compliment any music can get, in my opinion, is that it touches you in a way like that is on an emotional level, on a spiritual level. But even if it doesn't, I just hope people will enjoy what we've put out there. If you like sort of melodic, melancholic music, I think we're likely to be your cup of tea.
I think so as well. And, just look at the cover, and it basically tells you everything that you need to know about it. I get a sort of like Ophelia from Hamlet type of vibe in my mind. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's go, literary nerds. Let's do it. So Dan, it was so good to have you on, my friend. And like I said, I'm so happy that we got to share this album together, given its, importance to both of our personal canon, and also just trying to yell at the world to fucking look at Sentenced again. I was doing this for Nevermore for the longest time, but it looks like they may be coming back, so they might be getting in the realm again. Obviously, Sentenced won't be getting back together, but everybody go listen to it, everybody. And Dan, congratulations on the album again. Give Tereza my regards, and thank you so much for hopping on Spinning the Wax with me and sharing this.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure doing this.
Dan Tregenna from Opia, listening to The Cold White Light by Sentenced. Huge thanks to him for coming on the show, opening up about his past, and sharing the stories behind Opia's songs. And I have to say, for all the years that I've been spinning this record and occasionally info dumping about it, whatever the occasion arises, I haven't spent a lot of time talking about it with fellow Sentenced fans. So I appreciate you, Dan, for indulging me, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we do so. Go check out Opia's new debut album, I Welcome the Eternal Sleep, available everywhere now via Hammerheart Records. I hope you also go and check out The Cold White Light. If these little song excerpts that we had didn't pique your interest a little bit, I promise you that once you hit play on this motherfucking thing, you are not going to want to do anything else for the next 45 minutes. It is a perfect 10 out of 10, no skips album, and as I mentioned, should be legendary in the canon of heavy metal history. All right, well, that's all that I've got for this episode, everybody. Thank you for listening and supporting. I appreciate and love you so much. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a little cheeky comment below talking about Sentenced, Opia, or anything else that we talked about on the show today. If you're listening anywhere else, shoot me a line at spinningthewax@gmail.com, and think about leaving a 5-star review on whichever podcast platform is your preferred one. And definitely share this show with one or two of your most metal of friends. You can also head over to patreon.com/spinningthewax to support the show directly. You'll get early access to these episodes, new music updates every week, shared playlists, exclusive content, and full album listen versions of this show and of these interviews, so you can experience the record in its entirety. So we will be back in 2 weeks, my friends, when Tereza Lance from Mares of Thrace comes on Spinning the Wax to gush about her favorite Hungarian instrumental post-metal band, Hedge. Hope to see you there. Until then, take care of yourselves, everybody. Stay safe, stay sane, stay heavy, stay puffed.